On BBC WM, John Terry, Chelsea captain, former England captain, stripped of his captaincy, of course, after the accusations and the charges brought by the CPS for racially abusing Anton Ferdinand. He's been found not guilty. The Crown Prosecution Service, who brought this trial, have come in for criticism this afternoon. We learnt also that had John Terry been found guilty, he would have been sacked. He would have had his contract terminated by Chelsea. He'd have been damaged goods. Who would employ a convicted racist, or someone convicted, of racially abusing? Over to you, please. We're taking so many calls on this as well. Let's talk about how that would now damage. Even though he's been found not guilty, he's left the court without a stain on his character, although people will always think there is no smoke without fire. How will this damage brand John Terry, author of a new controversial book? It's going to be a bestseller. It's called The Brand Messiah. This is Jonathan Gabay. Jonathan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and excuse my head code before I go any further. I've just got one of those head codes. But good afternoon.
Thanks for your time, Jonathan. How will this damage his brand? People will have made their own minds up before the trial, and people will have listened to this verdict, and they will maybe even disagree with the verdict, and they will not have even had their minds changed. It's just a fact of life, isn't it?
Well, okay, a couple of things here. In terms of this particular character, his name, in terms of doing salubrious stuff, has come up time and time again in the past, and I've spoken about him as his brand. So we know that he's a naughty boy, if you wish, for so many different ways, and we don't need to rack all that all up again. But I'm more concerned in terms of the brand damage done to the actual sport of football, especially when we are coming up to the Olympic Games, and we're talking about sports in general. And the whole thing is supposed to be about team, getting on with people, yes, and okay, so you have a match or whatever tournament it might be, but you don't get into nonsense that he was accused, alleged of getting into, and all that sort of idea. So first of all, it's damaged. Thanks to him, it's actually damaged the greater brand of football, and I think that is wrong. Within that, with our country about to host the games, which is all about sport, I think it has a repercussion on that. The next thing that really worries me, is that from what I understand, and only from what I understand, that his own club submitted evidence that was saying, he's a good chap and all the rest of it, and and we support him and all this sort of idea. So what does that say about their brand in terms of the brand of Chelsea and so on and so forth? So really,
but then, Jonathan, just to interject,
the wrong brand message.
John, just to interject, he's been found not guilty. Surely Chelsea have been vindicated in their support.
Well, this is the thing. If he's been found not guilty, okay, and you're going to have your club that's going to say, well, actually, that is just banter in terms of football banter, okay? At which point, you've got to ask yourself, at which point is it that a sports person gets the equivalent of a red card and say enough is enough because it's damaging the brand of sport? I'm talking about the brand of sport, as well as, of course, their own brand within the actual Chelsea club itself. Do you see the point I'm making?
Yeah, so
how far can one go?
So the very fact that the magistrate at Westminster Court found Terry more credible than Ferdinand, and the basis of Terry's defence was the fact that he was repeating sarcastically what Ferdinand had said some 20 seconds earlier, and the fact that Chelsea supported this guy for his repetition in the sarcastic response, that's damaging nevertheless, even for Chelsea, is it?
Well, I'm saying that it's damaging from the point of view of both players, for goodness sake. We're dealing with people who are being paid a hell of a lot of money, okay, to be professionals, and they are great sports people, that no one can deny, okay? They're great sports people, that you've got people watching them at various stadia and whatever it might be, okay? And so they are setting an example, okay? And particularly this year, when we're talking about sport and about everything that is related to that in terms of branding, I'm sorry, it's a bit like, it's childish almost. It's like, he said this, so I said that.
Sure.
Really?
Well, how harmful? Listen, if it's damaging at this sensitive time with the world spotlight on the Olympics, if it's damaging with a not guilty verdict, how damaging would it have been if it had been found guilty?
Well, finally, and it's an interesting point, isn't it? It's one of those really interesting points. Because on one side, I could say, okay, actually, it would be better. Why? Because they say we do not put up with this kind of stuff in sport. Okay, we just don't do. We don't put. I don't care who you are. We don't put up. You're not bigger than the actual game of football. You're not bigger than the actual, and football isn't bigger than the actual brand of sport itself. So that would have been one answer. Okay, the other answer would have been, you can just take what I just said and just switch it on its head. So it's a very difficult one, but it boils down to a very simple thing, and that is this: we have two professional sports people who are marvellous at what they do. Okay. They should not, at their age, right, with the money they're being paid, be acting like this. Now, you could say, oh, yeah, but that's always been the same in football. Well, when are we going to allow ourselves to have higher standards? Because brands, of all types of commercial brands, are talking about things like unity, getting along with each other, doing the right thing. And then you've got people who are going to be representing that brand doing the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at which point do we say, well, that's,
Jonathan...
well, we'll accept anything.
Jonathan...
It's ridiculous.
Jonathan, just finally, he's been found not guilty, even though he's left court without a stain on his character. Is John Terry, the brand John Terry, damaged goods?
In terms of John Terry as John Terry, yeah?
Yeah.
He's been a bad boy for a few years now. You and I know that.
Yeah.
Okay? People who are going to take him on, they're going to have to take him on with that, slightly worn at the edges sort of thing when you go to buy a new sofa.
They're not going to take him on. What you're saying, the inference there is that they're not going to take him on because of the association.
I'm going to say that if people want to take on someone who, is like going to buy a sofa, it's a bit damaged at the side, but you are prepared to try and cover that up, fine. And if the damage rips open, and then, well, we did, buyer beware.
Okay, it's going to be a new bestseller. It's just released. It's a controversial book. You just heard from the author of the controversial book. It's called Brand Messiah, Jonathan Gabay. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Good man. Hope your cold gets better. Thanks very much indeed. 25 minutes past 3.